Tell me now you're in more trouble? What's going on? I'm just going to adjust your volume. Say, what is going on? Like, okay, let's take the folks back to where we were this year. I think I spoke to you February or March, and you had,
Yes, it was February. Yes, February.
on the
And at the
chance that
time,
on the chance that we have a few people that might not have heard your saga or gone back to that episode. Like before we get to where we're at today, and thanks for coming on again. By the way, tell the folks, the beginning, just a brief retell of how we met you in the first place, what you were in trouble for, so to speak, back then, where they left you, and then what's been going on since. Bring us up to date.
okay, well, I'm a cannabis user myself. I use it medicinally. I have an injury myself. I have a 6 out of 10 resting pain level from a few car accidents, and so I was needing to use it myself. I started to make the oil, and then I started to help other people, and it got to the point where I was helping quite a lot of people, about 200 people over Australia, and I was doing it all for free. I wasn't charging anybody. I was giving it away for free, but unfortunately, I was raided by police and subsequently charged. And now I'm facing, well, at the time that I spoke to you the last time, I was facing 9 years jail for the production or the manufacture of cannabis oil and possession and supply of cannabis oil to other people. So I had those charges at the beginning of this year, and so that's where we stood the last time.
Okay, well, what is their beef? Like they're charging you with what exactly?
So it is still illegal to manufacture cannabis oil and to supply it or possess it. So even though medicinal cannabis is legal in the country, it is only legal to have the legal versions of it, and you need to be prescribed from a doctor to get that. So the black market products are still highly illegal, and the people that make those products, we are highly sought after. Basically, I'm still considered equal to ice manufacturers, meth manufacturers, those sort of that level of drugs. That's how I'm being treated. The penalties are pretty much the same penalties.
Wow. And when you had your medical condition that caused you to start using medical cannabis, what kinds of things did it help remedy for you?
Well, I've got, like I said, body-wide chronic pain and nerve damage. I was in pain I've been in pain for now 25 years. I was only 20 years old when I had my first car accident. I've had 6. None of them are my fault. I'm not a bad driver. Unfortunately, I've been rear-ended 3 times while stationary. I've been hit from the side, hit from the front, and I've had a 40-foot pine tree drop on top of my car while I was driving along.
Wow.
So it's just compounded my pain issues and the different issues. So I have fibromyalgia, trigeminal neuralgia, and chronic nerve damage. So my pain levels are just insane, and I would have pain spasms that would last, sometimes 20 or 30 minutes.
Wow.
That are similar to an epileptic fit, but you're conscious during it, and it's like horrifically painful. So I would have, I had quite a lot of pain issues, and I was on really heavy drugs. I was on morphine for 15 years, Oxycontin, the endones. I was also on shots of pethidine in the leg. They put me on Lyrica towards the end, and that was a horrific drug.
Yes, I thoroughly agree.
Oh, it's the worst. It's one of the 7 most dangerous drugs in the world.
Yes.
It's an absolutely horrific drug. It's a drug that's given to people that are in extreme pain, but it causes suicidal thoughts.
Yes.
Now, people that are in extreme pain are already having suicidal thoughts, and then they give them a drug that's going to basically, inflame those problems, and that's insane. And there are a massive amount of people that have suicided while using Lyrica, but they will not let you know that, and those drugs aren't attributed to the drugs from Lyrica.
Yeah.
They are obviously associated as suicide, so it's not counted, even though it should be.
Yeah.
And I think any drug, any suicide that is, because of a drug that somebody's on, should be attributed to that drug. It should be, written in the coroner's report that it was that drug that caused that, because it's not fair that these normally sane people are basically being driven crazy by the medications that we're given from the pharmaceutical companies, and they know they do these things. They put the warnings in there if people just read them.
When you were using, when you had all those medical conditions, I mean, you're a good sport. This is what I think caused you to be in a lot of problem here. I mean, your laws are your laws, but you have done all of those things. It's not like you went into the room and said, no, I'm not going to use any of your stuff. I'm going to use this, and I'm not even open-minded enough. You've been through the gamut.
Exactly.
You've run through all these.
Exactly. I went to the pain
substances.
clinic. Like, I had to go to their pain clinic, and they tried out almost every drug they could on me. And it got to the point where I just started saying, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. They started wanting to give me, because they start to try and make, because when they can't control it with the other drugs, when the other drugs aren't working and they're thinking, okay, well, these should work, why aren't they working? They start saying it's in your head, that you're just imagining it. So then that's when they start wanting to give you the other drugs, like the lithiums and, the psychotic drugs,
That's
for
what I
those
said.
sort of things.
Show me the
And it's like,
data. Show me the data that says it's all in my head. That shuts them right up. Ask them that question. Show me the verified data, because they're going to tell you how cannabis doesn't work all the time, but they don't have the data that tells you how great their thing is.
Yeah. And the thing that I would always say to them whenever they sort of said to me it was in my head, it's like, if something's in your head, you don't wake up screaming from it in the middle of the night. Pain that's in your psychological pain will not wake you up during the night. You will experience that when you're already awake. You'll think, oh, I'm in pain. But if it's psychologically, if it's psychological only pain, it's not something that you'll wake, like if you move wrong in bed and it hurts you and you then scream and wake up in agony, that is when you know it's not psychological. And that's how I knew it wasn't. At first, I believed them, and I went for about 3 or 4 years where I started thinking I was crazy and that it was just all in my head. And that was when I was going through the legal case, because it was my first one was a car accident while I was at work, which is a double whammy, which meant I had the Australian work cover, which is what happened. The sort of the insurance that you get if you have an accident while you're working, but we also have a state insurance company that you get if you have a car accident that's not your fault. So I had to deal with both of those, and both of those organisations were going after me, and they were trying to break me. That's what they do. So I had these, both of these companies getting me to go to different medical appointments where the doctors would just lie, straight out lie. I was physically assaulted by one of their doctors in one appointment because I couldn't physically lift my leg right straight up in the air. If I was, if I had one leg straight on the bed, I couldn't lift the other one straight up in the air. I had to bend it at a right angle. And this doctor forced one leg down on the table and the other one directly up in the air, sort of at a 45-degree angle. And I was screaming in agony. And my husband at the time had to he was in the other room, had to actually come into the room and almost physically move the doctor off me before he would let me go. He just kept my leg in the air and I was screaming. It was probably about 2 minutes before my husband actually got into the room. And I couldn't walk afterwards. I literally had to be helped out of the room. And then in the report that he wrote afterwards, he said I did it with ease, and that at worst what happened was my eyes welled up with tears, but he said that was faked.
Wow.
And that's what he wrote in the report. And they said I was faking it and that it was all in my head, and they basically paid me out an absolute pittance. And then straight after that, the pain clinic took me on. I was assessed properly. They diagnosed me properly, and they basically said to me, right, okay, you're pretty much stuffed. You're never going to work again. You're going to be in pain for the rest of your life. You're not going to have children. Basically, this is it. And I was really angry, really, really angry, because like I said, for probably about 3 years, I started thinking it was in my head, and I was literally going crazy. And that's the problem. Pain causes depression. But when you get depression, they then try and blame the pain on the depression.
Yeah.
So it's like a catch-22, and you just can't win with these people. So, like I said, the pain clinic were just, they were just ridiculous. Like I said, they wanted lithium at one stage, and I said no to lithium. I said, no, it's not tested. It's not, you can't prove to me that it's not going to hurt me. So no, I'm not going to try that. And then they tried another couple. That's when they put me on Lyrica, was the one after that. And I agreed to do Lyrica because I didn't understand the problems with Lyrica. And then the next one they wanted to do was they wanted to take me off the morphine and put me on methadone.
Right.
And I said, look, no way. I said, no way. I said, you're just taking me off, like taking me from one addiction to another addiction. And I said, and methadone is something that you don't usually come off of. Once you get on methadone, you're on methadone for life, pretty much. It's very, very hard to get that off.
That's your problem. You were on all of that, including meth, and none of this seemed to turn your health around. Then you got a hold of some cannabis.
No, see, I never took methadone. That was where I drew the line at methadone, because I'd heard the problems with that, and that basically people that were addicted to that, trying to get off methadone was just, it's almost impossible.
Okay.
So I thought, I'm not going to that point. I'm not going there. And that's when I walked out of the pain clinic. I literally said to them, because I was using cannabis at the time, just smoking it, and I was already feeling the benefits. And I said to them, look, I want to go off all of these things and I want to try just use cannabis. And they didn't want me to do that.
Yeah, no.
And they started calling me a drug addict.
Sure.
And then they started accusing me. They actually started accusing me of not even using the morphine, of selling that on the black market. And then they started saying that they wanted to do drug tests, urine and blood samples, to make sure that I actually still had the morphine in my system and that I wasn't selling it on the black market.
Oh
and I said
God.
to them, you guys are idiots. I said, you're abs. And I mean, because I was getting to the point where I was even starting to work again at that point. So I was doing really well. And I just couldn't believe that they were treating me like an addict when I was, with cannabis, when I was improving on it, just smoking it. And that's when I started questioning their methods completely.
Yeah.
And I sort of basically said to them, look, I said, you can do your drug test. I said, you're going to find morphine in my system and you're going to find cannabis in my system. And I said, that's all you're going to find in my system. I said, but to be quite honest, I said, I'm just fed up with you guys. I said, you don't care about me and my welfare. I said, you're just using me as a guinea pig for all your drugs, all the new drugs that come out. Every year there was a new drug, and every year they tried to put me on a new drug.
And you wanted to stop doing that. You didn't want to be a guinea pig anymore, so that's how you got arrested.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's right. And so that's when
really
I said, right, that's it. I walked out of the pain clinic and I said, no more. And that's when I found out about the oil. And that's when I thought, right, I can do this myself.
Okay, so you were taking care of yourself. You found through the fallacies of the medical system and this whole opiate merry-go-round. Oh, you didn't like the pony? Try the tiger. And you keep going around and around. And so then you got to the place where you were realizing, this is starting to work on me. Remember that time where you by yourself when you realized, oh my God, this is really the thing?
Oh, I tell you, it was the first dose of the coconut oil that I made. I'd just been smoking cannabis, and then I tried vaping it, and I was getting really good effects from it, but it wasn't like the oil. And literally the first dose of the coconut oil that I took, I cried. I sat there and I sobbed, and it's the same reaction I got from everyone that I was helping. I got exactly the same reaction. People would ring me up after that first dose and go, oh my God, I don't believe this. I don't, you told me, but
wow.
I never thought it would be like this. And I sat there and cried, because I thought this is what it's supposed to be like.
God.
Because it was nothing like the opiates. It took the pain away in a way that the opiates never did. It didn't. And this is the thing I try and get across to people with pain as well. You can't take it all away. It's not good to take it all away. We need to feel just a little bit of that pain, so we know where our limits are.
Well, that's
otherwise
what it's
we
for,
do silly things.
right? That's basically what it's supposed to be, is a signaling system to the body to draw your attention to the main problem and then figure it out from there. But it's not supposed to be debilitating.
Exactly. You're not supposed to suffer from it. And that's what cannabis does. It helps, it sort of gets you to that level where you can still feel the triggers, you can still feel those signals when it's giving it to you, but it takes away the suffering. And I just couldn't believe it. It was that perfect spot. It was that perfect place where I could still do things, but I got the signals when I was starting to do too much, so that I could then stop. And so I wasn't overdoing it anymore. And I was it just, like I said, it changed my life in a way that I never thought it could. And then it helped not just the pain, it helped with depression, because the coconut oil is amazing for depression and anxiety. So it took away my depression and anxiety.
Tell me a little bit. Let's take a little side road with this coconut aspect. I really don't know much about that. Tell me how
Well, coconut oil is already an amazing substance by itself. But when you put it with cannabis, it's almost like there's this magical reaction. It just is incredible. And so it's already by itself, it's coconut oil is an anti-inflammatory. So it's an antispasmodic. It's an anti-everything basically. So it's really good for inflammation. And so inflammation anywhere, including on the brain. So that's why it works for epilepsy, because a lot of the epilepsy patients are having problems because there's inflammation on the brain, or wrong signals being sent to the brain, and the coconut oil basically stops that. And it also, not only does it stop the seizures, but it reduces the inflammation on the brain, the damage that's being done to the brain during all those seizures, because every time someone has a seizure, child or adult, it damages the brain. every time. And so these children that are having like 100 seizures a day are getting a massive amount of brain damage every day. And unless that's stopped and protected, that's when you lose these children. And these are the children that start to become nonverbal and start regressing, and then need constant care. And that's because of the damage that's done to the brain by these constant seizures. Whereas the coconut oil, it actually not only reduces it, but it reverses it. So we've had children that were non-verbal for maybe a couple of years, and they have actually started to come back. And these children that had never spoken before, there were some children, had started seizing at a young age, and so never really got the ability to speak. So at 7 and 8 years old, have now turned around and started to tell their parents they love them. Wow. Now that to have a parent, for a parent to hear their child say "I love you" is one of the most important things you could ever have. And so these parents, will ring me up and they will be crying their eyes out and, thanking me. And, and this is why we do this. It's, we're trying to get these, not only save the kids' lives, but bring them back, try and fix some of the damage that's done. It's not just about saving their lives. It's about giving people a quality of life. And this is what it does. This is what it does. And the coconut oil, like I said, it's amazing. And I've just seen a little comment come up that says they say coconut oil is poison. That is not true.
I was going to say there was
recently everyone because what happened was the canola oil companies, because canola oil is dangerous. It is extremely dangerous. Yeah. So the canola oil companies just recently funded a study that they put out that basically says coconut oil is poison, because they know everyone is using coconut oil. So please don't believe that. Coconut oil is not dangerous. If you get the right one, it's a proper good virgin organic coconut oil is not dangerous. It is extremely good, and it's just like any sort of other good oil. Yeah. If you use too much of it, obviously it's not good for you. But used in moderation, just like any other substance, there is nothing wrong with it. Yeah. You just have to look at the people that live in the Pacific Islands. Now, before Western medicine or before Western cultures reached them, they were one of the most healthiest people on the planet, on the face of the planet. And that was because of their use of coconut and coconut oil.
Well, maybe we should arrest them then. Maybe what we need to do is arrest those people. If they're going to be healthy on a cheap plant, there must be some kind of law system where we can round them all up and put them into a pen somewhere and impinge on their freedom. I mean, why should they be immune from that kind of hostile reaction from our level-headed thinking rulers? Huh?
Exactly.
It's just incredible.
And like another Yeah, and there's another misconception as well, because coconut oil, anybody with blood type O can have reactions to coconut oil, and this is another thing that people don't realise. So people with blood type O can sometimes react to coconut oil. They sometimes get stomach problems, stomach pains, but also the burps and farts and things like that. So it's one of those things. So some people might have a reaction to coconut oil, and that's basically only because of their blood type, and it's basically they're just allergic to it.
Well, I'm type O blood, and I'm okay with it. It doesn't seem to bother me. At least I was burping and farting well before my first round of coconut oil, so I'm not going to blame that.
So yeah, but like I said, the best results I've had are when I use the coconut oil and the FECO together. That's when I just get, I've just had almost miraculous results. That's where, brain tumours that are gone within, a matter of a few months, and leukemias, blood cancers, in remission within, I had one in a matter of, I think, three and a half weeks. We had a leukemia in remission, and that's, when you use these things in combination. But it's also about smart dosing as well, and knowing your carrier oils and what they're used for, like knowing that that your olive oil is going to get to your bloods and your lymph systems, and that your coconut oil is going to get into your organs, and dosing accordingly. And that's the thing, it's being smart about how you dose.
What is your good question, good point, lead in for this question that I already had teed up, but what's your dosage? Do you do 1-to-1 with the coconut oil and FECO oil, or how do you do it?
It really depends on conditions. So it depends on every condition as to how I dose. And that's because over the years, doing different conditions, I've realised that, just like every person is different, every condition is different. And so you need to treat it accordingly. Yeah. So your cancers, I do the 1-to-1. If I'm doing a suppository, it'll be a 1-to-1 FECO to coconut oil. So 1 gram, obviously you've got to get the people up to it, but, at their optimal dose, they'll be having 1 gram of FECO and 1 gram of coconut oil as a suppository, but they'll also be having an oral dose as well. So I basically joke around to people that you're going to be getting it basically up both ends. It's going to be going up and down. So, and that way yeah, sorry, go on.
That's okay. I wanted you to finish, but I thought you were. So I had another question about not just your illness, it was something else. But I wanted to ask, so you were able to get on top of your own medical problems first, right? You understood this worked.
Yeah, I never started helping anybody else until I had helped myself first.
Okay.
And I'd practiced on not only myself, but on I've got animals. So I had a sick dog and different people around me, like different really close family and friends that used it. So before I ever tried helping anybody else, I'd already practiced quite a lot.
Yeah. So, and we'll get to some stories about your animals later, but we're getting to that. Okay. So some unfortunate stories about your animals, but you found that it helped them. So you tried it with yourself. You tried it with these animals that you have, and then later, this is what really got people, angry at you, is you started helping other folks, right? Like other people who are ill. So aside from all the things that we've heard you were able to remedy and do for yourself and your own, series, 2 decades of pain that you've been sort of pushing down, tell us about some of the other conditions. Just like give us a menu of items of other illnesses or problems that you've helped other people with down there in Australia.
Okay, well, there's been cancers and lots of different cancers. So there's been brain tumours, breast cancers, pancreatic cancers, obviously blood cancers like leukemias. So lots of different cancers and tumours. Then we have the stomach disorders like the Crohn's, the IBS, and then the COPDs, all of those ones. Then we have the autoimmune diseases like the stiff person syndrome, which is extremely hard to treat, and the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a thing called stiff person syndrome. It's an extremely painful and also near fatal condition. It has the spasms, like I was explaining before, the pain spasms, but they last sometimes up to 2 hours. It's they describe it as like having a taser held against your spine. So it's like having an epileptic fit, but you're basically conscious during the whole thing and in an extreme amount of pain. And your blood pressure and your temperature and everything rise to dangerous levels during these things. So you can actually die during these things. So one guy that I was helping is a guy named Ben Oakley, and he has a Facebook page called Roll On Ben Oakley. I started helping him, and he just had like miraculous results with it. So he's now an advocate as well. He travels around and speaks at different events.
Well,
so
I've
stiff
never
person
heard of
syndrome.
That. Oh, that's
so it's another autoimmune disease. So, and then, like I said, there was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as well. That was one that a lot of people were having a lot of trouble treating, and we did that with just the coconut oil. Both of those conditions were just with the coconut oil. That's not FECO. That is just the coconut oil, and that's the one that you can just make with a slow cooker on your kitchen bench in 24 hours. It's no chemicals. It's easy as anything, and it's saving people's lives.
Right on.
So that was the autoimmune diseases, like your MS, Parkinson's, all of those ones. Then there was the epilepsies, so there were lots of different types of epilepsies and lots of different ages. And then there were the pain conditions, so your fibromyalgias and your trigeminal neuralgias. Trigeminal neuralgia is very hard to treat, and so I did struggle a bit with the trigeminal. You had to have high doses of FECO for that. But I've also found out since then, if you get the right strain, which is, from what I hear, the Charlotte's Web strain, is one of the best ones for trigeminal neuralgia. So if you get a strain specific to that, it's good. So there were just a massive amount of conditions. Like it was almost everything. Then there were the skin, then the skin ones as well. That's right. Also the rub on, we would use the coconut oil and just rub it on the skin, and that would fix all of the eczemas and all those sort of things.
Wow.
And then we had the sleep disorders as well, the ones that I can't remember the name of. I've gone blank. But there's a sleep disorder, and it was horrific. These people would have these like screaming nightmares as they went to sleep and as they woke up. And so it made them not want to sleep. They didn't want to fall asleep because it was like this horrific experience. So just imagine the worst nightmares you could have, and you would do that every time you fell asleep and woke up. So it wasn't nice, and it completely got rid of all of those. So it was, like I said, it was just helping everything. And so every time I would help something different, I would think, wow, this is incredible. And every time it helped one group of diseases, I realised it would help all of those. So, once it helped one autoimmune disease, I realised it would help all the others as well.
Wow, that is truly amazing. I have to say that if you are suffering from any of those particular medical diseases or stage 4 cancer, have you tried cannabis? Ask your doctor if avoiding opioids is for you. Right? I mean, this is incredible how powerful it is, but let's get us now from the time of yourself getting arrested. How did that happen? Did someone you were helping tell a family member who, as often is the case with family members, are interfering and negative in your proceeding forward, or was there some other kind of ratting you out, or how did you get it nailed in the first place?
There's lots of rumors. You know what the cannabis communities are like. There are a lot of rumors. There were a few people that didn't like me at the time that were arrested a couple of weeks before I was. So there's talk that person named me. There's talk. There's a lot of different rumors of how it might have happened, but either way, it happened. And so, like I said, the police came on the 4th of January 2017 last year and raided my house. And they got to the door, and before I even let them in, I said to them, look, I said, yep, I said, there's cannabis and cannabis oil on the premises. I said, it's here. I'm giving it to people that are sick and dying, and anything you take today could result in somebody's death. And they came in and they took the oil that was here, and it did indeed result in people's death.
Wow. And they put you in handcuffs and off you went?
No, they didn't put me in handcuffs. They didn't arrest me that day. They just seized everything. Oh. And it was, I must admit, now that I look back now, you know how you say you look back and laugh. I must admit, I do have to laugh now. They actually came in with 2 patrol cars, and they filled up the boot of those 2 cars, and then they had to call a paddy wagon, and they filled up the back of the paddy wagon as well.
Wow.
And they still didn't get everything. I'll just say that. I won't say more to
Good for you. So then you were, I'm just catching up, but this is also leading us to where we are now, because this is very frightening. At the same time, remember, folks, while you're listening to this is all unfolding around the world in various different vicinities. We just don't have all of them on the show, but there are other people doing the same thing where they find that they've been helped with this medicine. I am one of those people. And they find that they can help other people by accessing this medicine, and I am also one of those same people. So I'm... there's not just myself and you doing this. There's a lot of people doing this. Then you have the legalities, as complicated as they are, still tipping towards access and legalization, still tipping in that direction, although we're not anywhere near close enough to it yet. And still, you're going to get arrested and face, a massive shutdown of your liberties for bringing forth this medicine for so many people. It's just astounding to me. I can't believe it. But so tell us what happened in the courtroom last time, just a brief catch up of what happened and where they left you. And you've been free for a while, but now things have turned to the worse, apparently. What's going on?
A lot has happened since we spoke last. I was never arrested and never put in jail, so I haven't actually spent time in jail yet, but I'm on bail at the moment. And if they come back now, then I will go to jail. So if I'm arrested again. But since we spoke last, at our last interview, my charges were 9 years. So it was the charges for the cannabis oil. So it was manufacture of cannabis oil and possession and supply of cannabis oil. Since we spoke last, because I'm pleading guilty and I don't think they're very happy with me, they actually doubled my charges. So now they have laid another whole set of charges, the same charges, but for cannabis resin as well. So what they did was they tested the oil that was in syringes ready to be sent out as cannabis oil, and they tested the oil that was still left in the bottom of the pan that I had cooked it out in as cannabis resin, and they are trying to charge me separately. So basically they're charging me twice for the same offence.
Resin. That's the double whammy.
Yeah, so now it's 18 years, so 2 lots of 9. So now it's 18 years. And then because I still didn't want to plead guilty, since then I've also had more issues, and my legal aid funding was withdrawn.
Right.
So they took away the legal aid to fund the lawyers. So then they basically said if I wanted to continue with a not guilty plea, I would have to fund it myself. So since then, I've had to try and come up with the funding.
I think I misheard you at the beginning. I thought you said that you had pled guilty and they were not happy about that.
No, sorry, I pled not guilty, and they weren't happy. So because I'm pleading not guilty, they're not really thrilled with me. They want me to plead guilty, and they're really pressuring me to do that. So, they're not happy that I'm not being cooperative. Put it that way.
So that's when they decided to double everything up.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And double everything up and take away the legal aid so that they knew that.
Yeah, because
they probably hoped that there would be no way I would be able to fund it myself.
And who are you going to get to help you now? You've had your legal funds cut off, your legal help, your whatever it's called, your public defender.
I've called out to my supporters in the public, and I've asked for help to basically crowdfunding to be able to support it.
Well, listen, let's tell the folks. Let's tell the folks right now where they can find that. Anybody listening, we'll just put a little sting right in the middle of the show here, and how about that? Let's get you to. Where is Jenny's?
Okay, well, I just have a PayPal account that I'm putting it into. We were using the first lot of money that we raised. We did through one of the crowdfunding things, and they ended up taking so much in fees that we were getting a bit annoyed. So we decided just to say put the deposit the money just straight into the PayPal account, and that way we don't lose as much fees. So I just have a PayPal account. I can put the link up afterwards.
Yeah, let's do that.
If you like.
Where can
it's
we get
on my page. Well, it's all over my social media. So it's on my Facebook, it's on my Instagram and my Twitter. So, you can usually find it on there. Otherwise, I'll put the link up on the YouTube afterwards, so people can find it there if they like. But any donations are gratefully appreciated. It's really frustrating. But since then, there has been more developments, and this is something that nobody knows at the moment. This is breaking news just for the Green Crush crew.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
I haven't announced this anywhere yet, and I'll be announcing it on a live video tomorrow night on my Facebook. But unfortunately, there's been some more issues with my legal team, and this is I was already on my second, almost third, or probably third lot of my third legal team, basically, because of different issues with ones. And so the ones that I have been dealing with previously, I had my solicitor quit, basically, about a week or two ago, just out of the blue. And so I've now had to try and sort out another legal team. So it's just been one issue after another, and it's extreme.
Are you being cagey? Is there a particular reason that we can hear why this person quit? Because I have a suspicion on why this might have been the case, but I don't want to jump the gun.
Well, it has been cited as personal issues, but I have been made aware that there are possibly other issues. I can't release those right now. Once I have officially secured my new legal team, which I haven't done as yet, I won't be doing that until tomorrow morning. As soon as I do that tomorrow morning, then I'll be able to basically explain everything in detail. There has been definitely some issues and just things that will definitely affect my trial. It definitely has to be addressed. So it's been extremely stressful, and to be quite honest, I've had enough. These people don't seem to realise that this is my life, and I'm facing a huge sentence, and I'm just getting a little bit tired of the mucking around and the games that people play. Like I've been lied to by quite a few lawyers in the past, and different ones that I spoke to get advice before choosing a lawyer.
When they talk about my friend, though, right? They talk about my friend on the other. My friend here says, when they're talking to the prosecutor or the other lawyer, they say my friend seems to think, and it sort of seems adversarial, but they really are friends, and you're just the cog in the machine. The judges are together with the lawyers. They're all playing a certain game, and you are not playing the game because they just wanted you to say guilty, because that would have been awesome. Because then right out of the hop, you're saying, I was wrong. I'm so sorry for doing this. Please be nice to me. And they give you like 5 years, and maybe you do a year and a half or 2 years. But you're saying, this was political. Yeah, and this was politically motivated. This is like a sign to everybody else to say, all right,
if we're going to take her out, we're going to take all of you out, because I was compassionate. I wasn't charging anybody, and they knew that. It was about 3 months between raiding me and laying the charges on me, and they knew exactly what I had done in those 3 months. People had come out to the media. The parents of the kids had come out. There were like about 50 people that all came out as soon as I was arrested and said, this is bullshit, you can't do this, our kids are going to die. And so there was an absolute outcry. There was it was all over the media, every single station, print, news, everything. It was everywhere. They knew exactly who I was. They knew what I'd done. They knew how many people I'd helped, and they knew I'd done it for free, and they still laid charges. So this was politically motivated. This was like saying, okay, we're going to take her out, because if she's done it and she's got, pretty much such a clear conscience, anybody out there that's been selling it, we're coming after you, and we're going to go even harder on you. So it's almost to me like a warning to everybody else. And so that's why I'm saying, no, well, stuff you guys, if you want to use me as a little tool, then I'll play hard back, because, I don't think they've really, given me enough credit for how much I'm going to fight this, because I've got nothing to lose now. Absolutely nothing to lose. I haven't got children.
I do want to say,
like, if I go to jail, I don't care.
You don't have kids.
I don't, no.
And you've laid yourself on the line with this thing, but there's something that I'd like to say about this particular topic, and you've teed it up so well. If you'll just give me a second to talk about it. And it involves the future. Yeah, that's right, the future. So here's the thing. I understand that it's not nice, it's not decent, and it's not correct or even human to wish a disease or an illness or a bad turn of events on someone, but particularly a disease or an illness. It's not an okay thing to wish for. Okay, I've been inside this stage 4 bubble for a while, and it is a very uncomfortable place to be and to navigate from, particularly when people are on the other side of things. But I predict that your particular situation, and many similar other situations going on around the world like it, are going to change at some point. And I predict the reason for this will come in the future, and it is this. Like I say, you wouldn't want to wish something like these diseases that you have been so kind to treat for free. All these fellow countrymen of yours, I assume most of them are Australian, getting help from you that has been denied, and the state system that is demonizing you and threatening to take away 2 decades of your life because you're trying to give anybody else any continuance on theirs is fucking abhorrent. I can't even believe it. But what I'd like to say is this. A lot of people are getting sick. I got sick. Yep. You were unwell. The people you've helped, the people that so many of us have helped, are unwell. That's just a fact. And I hope that one day a particularly powerful politician has a child that suffers one of these particular conditions. Not because I'm wishing this on anybody, but because it happens to all kinds of us. And one of these days, that particular condition, that autoimmune disease, that stage 4 cancer, whatever the hell it is going to afflict itself onto the child of a person of sway who is at least open enough to make it more available. Now, who do you know, in that category?
Can I say that? No, can I say, I've got to interrupt you there. Do you know what? It's not going to happen. And you know why it's not going to happen? Because all of the politicians and all of the rich people in this country can access it now if they want it. Because we have something called the personal importation scheme, which means if you've got enough money, you can toddle your little ass over to Canada or America, you can get a prescription, you can get a product, and you can bring it back here, but you can only get 3 months supply at a time. So that's why those people aren't helping us, because they don't give a shit about the poor people, because they can get it themselves already, and they don't care about the poor people that are too poor to be able to access it, too poor to be able to fly over to another country to get it.
Okay, that's why I see your bishop.
That's why we don't get any help.
I see your bishop coming in on a 45-degree angle, but let me just take my night horse and do an L shape around and land it just ahead of you on the board. Okay? Well, I totally agree with what you're saying, but we also have people like previous Crush guest, and apparently Kim is he coming on again soon? Our friend from England, Paul Flynn, the MP. Paul Flynn, the MP, stood up and told everybody all about it, and we should start playing those bites again. about cannabis in the House in England. He's of the Labour Party there, very high up in the Labour Party. And, I mean, he doesn't have children, or, to my knowledge, that are ill. I mean, he's 82 himself. But he gave a powerful exhortation for the wonders of cannabis. And if he had a child that were ill, or somebody that he knew that were ill personally, I'm sure he would be sharing the recipe online, this guy. So I understand what you're saying, and I understand that what I'm saying is a tiny little shot in the dark, and that the higher echelon is already, of course, being taken care of. But
we do have some politicians. We do have some politicians supporting us.
Okay,
we have some amazing politicians here that are supporting us. We have our Greens leader, Richard Di Natale. I actually had a meeting with him earlier this year. They had an election here in this state, and he came over to do the election launch. And I had a meeting with him, and he spent the whole amount of time that he had left over that day. He spent with me, and we talked about the whole situation. And he said to me, "How do we fix this?" And I said, "Right." I said, because at the moment, people can't access the medicinal version. It's just almost impossible to get hold of. There's still the process you have to go to get authorization is just ridiculous. And so there's, I think, less than 1,000 people still in Australia that have been able to access it legally, and that is insane. So it basically, the whole thing hasn't worked. The whole system hasn't worked. And so we said, well, how do we get this to the people, and how do we get it to them now? And I said to him, we need to just legalize it recreationally. Because that way, if we have dispensaries, people could just go to a dispensary. They can get their own products like they're already doing on the black market. They can treat themselves like they're already doing, and they don't have to worry about stuffing around getting a prescription and worrying if their condition is covered. And I said, that's how we do it. And he agreed. And so he is now supporting the legalisation of recreational cannabis across the country. Wow. We also have the Liberal Democrats that are supporting recreational cannabis across the country. We have another couple of little parties that sort of do the mock support, but a lot of it is more for attention than anything else. But the main parties, because we have two main parties, Liberal and Labor, we still just can't get anything decent out of them. Wow. It just seems to be that too many. What we think is too many of these politicians have links to pharmaceutical companies, and they have too much to lose. And I think they're holding it back. Our former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, who has just been kicked out, has family ties to several pharmaceutical companies that not only make the GW Pharma that makes Epidiolex and those ones. So he has a financial interest in the only products that are available at the moment in Australia. But he also has a financial interest in the companies that will lose money if cannabis comes in these countries, and the other cancer drugs that are sold. And, so he has conflict of interest in all of this. And so we honestly believe he was part of the problem. He was holding this back so that he could basically benefit financially himself from it all. And so that's partly where some of our struggles have been. He's now been outed, but we don't know whether or not we're going to have any more luck than we did when he was in now. So, it's just been set in motion. What he did, they basically legalised it federally. Medicinal cannabis was legalised federally in November of 2016. But what they did to slow it down was they said, right, okay, it's legal, but to access it, the states have to work out the access laws. And none of the states knew what to do. None of them knew what to do. So whereas they could have just brought an immediate federal access scheme in so that people could, access it from a federal model, they didn't. They said, okay, all you states have to figure it out yourself. And that's what stopped it. All the states just went, well, what do we do? Like, what the fuck? We don't know what to do with this, and so, and they've all been trying to decide, and all the states are different. They're at different stages. Yeah. There are some states that have got some sort of legalization through access through, and there are others that haven't got any sort of access whatsoever. And it's just caused absolute chaos, and also just trauma amongst people. Like, I constantly get phone calls from people just bawling their eyes out, just sobbing, and this is male and female, sobbing their eyes out on the phone, because they can't help their family members and they can't help their children, and they don't know what to do anymore. And they've done everything properly. They've gone through all the avenues. Our politicians keep saying to us, all we have to do is go and speak to our doctors, and our doctors can sort it out for us. We go and speak to our doctors, and our doctors still don't know anything about it, because still 2 years after it's been legalised, they still haven't rolled out an education program for doctors. Yeah. So the doctors have got no idea what they're doing or what the products are.
Is it really hard to imagine, though, that a country that came into existence courtesy of British colonialism invading the indigenous would have people so crooked at the current helm as well? I mean,
it's insane. And especially when you look at the country at the moment, Australia is in absolute turmoil. The sort of things that have been going on, the corruption that is at just the highest levels. Like this Malcolm Turnbull just gave a donation of $444 billion, I think it was, to an environmental group to look after the Great Barrier Reef without consultation to any other groups. And the group that he's given it to, the heads of it are like old Exxon, and they're basically nowhere near environmentally friendly, but they're masking as that. And they gave 6 years worth of funding in one lump sum, and that's unheard of. You never do that. And they gave them all their 6 years funding in one lump sum. It's like that's now being looked into. It's that sort of thing that's been going on. Malcolm Turnbull, when he got in, he basically, as far as I'm concerned, the only reason he got in as Prime Minister was to shore up his own financial interests. I don't want to get into the whole pro-vaccination thing, but he brought in a law that basically said that anybody who's receiving any sort of welfare payments, that you must have your children vaccinated, otherwise you'll lose those welfare payments. Now, his wife owns the company that makes those vaccinations.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a direct conflict of interest. So basically he brings in a law that means you have to have a vaccination and you have to get it from my company or my wife's company.
That's when are the people when are the people going to, it's not a surprise that at one time guillotines were invented, right? What are we going to do about this? This is going on at so many levels of internationally, but man, you guys are really
and I think
going
this is
through it
where
down there.
We have to start coming together. And I think at the moment we have all our individual little groups and we all protest over individual little things. The cannabis people protest, and then the same-sex marriage, the gays and that protest, and then we get the environmentalists all protest. I think it's time we all start coming together and doing just big mass protests of just all our freedoms being taken away, all our civil rights being taken away, all our human rights being taken away. And I think if we can all come together and join together to do this, I think we'll show much higher numbers. Because, you guys over there, I've seen the videos of some of your rallies, your cannabis rallies,
right?
And in both Canada and America. And I cried, I absolutely cried. The numbers you get over there are staggering. We are lucky to get 100 people turn up to one of our cannabis rallies.
Oh boy!
In each state, and I tell you, we organise these events. We go out of our way. We pay to put these events on. We kill ourselves doing this stuff, and then we sit there and we watch. Sometimes the last rally up in Brisbane, they got maybe 30 people.
30. Oh
30
my God.
people.
Why do you suppose that is?
It's just like
what's your
people
population?
Are either scared or they're lazy.
What's the population of Australia? What's your population?
It's just hit. I think it was 25 million. It's just hit.
25 million, and in a town that size, you're only going to get 35 people to show up. 30 people. That's incredible.
Yep.
Yeah. That really
is astounding. And this is it. See, in Australia, we've got this saying, "She'll be right, mate."
Yeah.
She'll be right, mate. It'll be okay.
Don't worry about it.
And that is the attitude of it. It's like, it'll be all right. It'll get better. It might be shit at the moment, but it's going to get better. Don't worry about it. But that means nobody does anything.
Yeah.
So Australia is one of the most apathetic countries in the world.
Wow.
They are taking away our rights day by day. They have taken away our right to protest. Now you can't protest if you want to protest something that might damage our overseas the way we appear overseas, you can be arrested for that. You now can't cover your face at a protest, so you can't wear the anonymous masks at protests anymore. They're slowly taking away more and more of our rights.
Yeah.
And they're just squashing us down and trying to just basically make us robots. And then they spray us with chemicals that dumb us down. They give us pharmaceutical drugs that are basically just chemical lobotomies, because that's what most of those pharmaceutical drugs are, especially the antidepressants. Yeah. So, they just keep doing these things to just keep pressing us down so that we don't fight back. And so this is what I'm saying to everybody. If we don't stand up soon, if we don't stand up now, we won't be able to fight back. They will take away everything. They will, the lobotomies will be complete. The chemicals will be in our bodies. We won't be able to fight back. We need to stand up and fight now while we still can, before they take away every single one of our liberties that we have left. And it's not just, like in America, you have, well, sorry, not you, but in America, they have the protection of civil rights. They have, the civil rights are protected there. We don't have that here in Australia, and I'm not sure about you guys in Canada, but I don't think you probably do either.
No,
we have a constitution.
Yeah, we're closer to your system than the American system.
Yeah, our constitution does not protect us. It does not protect us. And so basically they treat these countries more like, especially the Commonwealth countries, as you would know, they treat them more like corporations than they do.
Well, they are.
Actual
they
countries.
Are, though. That's the thing.
They've registered them.
Yeah, they are corporations.
And so
that's the problem.
This is why we have to do something now, because they're going to take away every little bit of freedom that we have.
Well, we're doing the best we can, Jenny. Jenny, we're doing the best we can here, and I feel so connected to you. Like we're if you're looking at a poster of the world, we're up in the top left corner, and we've got this arrow, this line going down to the bottom right, connecting up with you, and we've got listeners around the world, and so do a lot of other fine cannabis-themed shows and rights-themed shows. And it's stories like yours. I mean, you're so impassioned telling us about all of these things going on. But let's remember, the reason you're on this show in the first place is because we were just so alarmed that you were facing any kind of penalty, and now they've doubled it. So I understand where you're coming from in your place. I think the folks, if they're listening to this, can see, you're all about helping somebody else out and to get past a life of pain. And why should you even be, for 1 second, wasting any of your time right now, even the time you're wasting right now, dealing with this oncoming court situation is already, just that for you is already a loss of rights. Never mind what comes later. But while you've been waiting it out, we were talking about your animals earlier and how you were helping your animals with this cannabis oil as well, and probably with the coconut mixture as well with that, and different ratios for different reasons. Wouldn't mind hearing about some of that, and then also update us with some of the bad news that's been going on regarding your pending trial results and your animals.
Okay, well, I mean, I've helped a lot of different animals with a lot of different conditions, just like humans. Pain is one of the easiest to help. But just general well-being, I found just the coconut oil with especially dogs and cats, just a tiny little bit each day just helps their general well-being. And I remember taking my dog who was on oil because of pain. He had, as a puppy, because I rescue most of my animals, he was rescued as a puppy, and he'd already had a broken leg and a broken back tail. And so he was already suffering pain from a puppy, a tiny little puppy. And the vets couldn't really give him any pain medications during his life because they're so damaging to the stomach. Anything that they gave him basically would have just reduced his lifespan down to nothing. So we tried all the natural things instead. And there's the turmerics and all those sort of things that you can try, but nothing worked like the cannabis did. And I remember it was the same as me, the very first dose. I remember putting a little bit in his food, and and it usually takes between 20 and 40 minutes for it to kick in. So within about half an hour, he just looked at me. Because he was always right by my side. He was a little Chihuahua cross terrier, so he was a little dog that was always by my side, in my lap, in the bed with me, wherever. It was always next to me. And so if he moved, I would look. And so I remember him just turning around and looking at me with this look in his eye that was almost like, wow, like, thank you. It was like an expression I hadn't seen, because there's always been like, someone's, when they're in pain, they have this little frown. There's this little frown that
even
they carry,
when they're smiling.
And I have it. Yeah, and I have these two little lines above my eyes, and that's my little signal for when I'm not well. And so people that know me very well will know that as soon as those lines start deepening, that's when my pain is increasing and I'm not well. And so anybody who knows me well, if they see those two lines, they know it's time to get me somewhere quiet and resting. So we have these little things, and so he didn't have the frown. The frown had gone, and he just kept staring at me. He just, it would normally just crash out and not worry, but he was just staring at me. And I thought, what is wrong with you? And then he jumps up off the seat and does a bit of a stretch, like I hadn't seen him stretch before. And I've got this house that you can sort of go all the way round. It's, sort of like an open sort of plan, so that you can get all the way around from the kitchen all the way around. And he went out one door, and the next, like within seconds later, he came screaming through the other door, and then just went round and round and round and round about 5 or 6 times. And I literally, because I was worried he was going to hurt himself, so I literally picked him up and I was just holding him in the air, and his legs were still going. And he just looked so excited. And he just then, I sort of like fell back laughing on the seat, on the lounge, and he jumped all over me. He was licking all over my face. And it was almost like, when you go away somewhere and you come back and they haven't seen you for a week. Sure. He was doing that.
Wow.
And it was like,
so it's
oh
obviously
my God.
dangerous then for him. It's obviously dangerous then. You could have killed him.
Oh, heaps dangerous. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you also have you have kangaroos as well.
Yeah, so I use it on a horse, and I use it on kangaroos, cats, you name it. But yeah, the kangaroos were good as well, because kangaroos are very funny animals. They're very hard to look after. They get easily stressed, and they can die from stress. They get something called myopathy, which is if they get stressed too much, they basically start to rot from the inside out, and they die. And it can take up to a month for it to happen, and it's horrible, and it's painful, and their joints all stiffen and their muscles stiffen, and it's a horrible thing. So they're very hard to treat, and they're very funny with medications. So it's easy to kill a kangaroo with the wrong medication, or just a slightly more medication than you're supposed to.
Right.
And so it was always very on edge treating different conditions. And because I was a rescuer, I would get kangaroos in with lots of different injuries and things. I had one with a broken tail that was in absolute agony, and the pain medication, you had to be so careful with it. Just the slightest, too much, and that was it. You would overdose them, but not enough, and that wouldn't work. So, so you were always sort of on the edge with it, and then you'd have to inject it, and that was more stress for them. And whereas with the oil, you could just put a tiny little bit in some food, and they would just nibble it, and that would be it. They would be relaxed and calm. They wouldn't have any side effects from it like they would from the other drugs. And it worked for so many different conditions as well. And it was just amazing, and just to see the difference in them. We also had a litter of puppies where we had the runt of the litter was about to die, and it was the middle of the night. We couldn't get a vet out, so we couldn't get it put down, and we didn't want it to suffer. So I suggested to them that they just put a tiny little bit of the coconut oil in the dog's mouth, just to give it some relief, basically, while it passed. And an hour later they came back and they couldn't find it, and they thought the mum must have taken it and dumped it somewhere away from all the others. But then they realised, no, it was still there. And what it had done is it had woken up, it had gone up, it had pushed all the other puppies away, and it was on the best teat, and it was suckling away, and it hadn't suckled since it was born. And it ended up being the biggest and smartest of all the puppies. So that was when we realised there is really something to this. And then after that, they would give all of the puppies just a tiny little bit in the mouth after they were born, and they all just went, they were just amazing. The results they would get from them, they just did so well.
So the veterinarians hate you too.
Yeah, well, I didn't really tell a lot of the vets what I was doing, because I was a bit worried how they would react, and I was scared that they would take my animals away from me. So at one stage I actually took my little dog, when he was 16 years old, I took him to the vet just to get some tests done, just to test his blood test, just to test his organs and just see how he was going, because I knew he was probably getting to the point where he was getting close, and I sort of wanted to be prepared. So we went and had these blood tests done, and the vet said to me that before he had the bloods done, he was pretty much ready to go through the same spiel that he would give everybody that was having a dog tested at 16 years old, which is the organs are about to shut down, they're getting older, you need to be prepared, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. He said the results came back and he was stunned, and he came into me and he said, he's basically got the results of an 8-year-old dog. He said the organs are perfect. He said, his organs are great, the heart's great, everything's great. There's no problems whatsoever. He's still, going to go. And he went for another 2 years, and we only really put him down because he just couldn't really move because of the broken leg and the broken tail, and the issues with his back and whatever. He was just getting to the point where he couldn't move anymore. He couldn't jump up and down from the seats. And even though we were giving him the cannabis oil, it got to the point where he had to have so much of a dose, it was either knocking him out or it wasn't really having an effect. So you have to get to a point where you start saying, is the quality of life there for this animal?
Right.
And just because I love them do I have the right to keep them here suffering just because I don't want to lose them? And so I made the very difficult decision. I spoke to a vet and we, consulted about it. And that vet knew that we were using the oil. That was a different vet. And she knew that we were using the oil and that basically it had come to the point where it wasn't really working. She knew that she couldn't give me anything better than the oil to use. So that was the point where we had to say, okay, it's time to let him go. Okay. But I know that he had the absolute, best chance. And he was 18, almost 19 when he died. So, that's a pretty good run for a dog. So
and we're just coming to the end of our time. You've been so generous with yours again, but were you experiencing some hassles with the animals? You've had some kinds of retribution or something? Could you just tell us what's going on with that for a little bit before we have to let you go?
Yep, no worries. Well, obviously, as we know, a lot of activists, when you start, getting places that people don't want you to get, you start getting threats. And unfortunately, in April, I started receiving threats to the kangaroos, my kangaroos. I had 4 of them. I got a phone call in April basically saying that somebody was going to come and hold me down and skin my kangaroos alive in front of me while I watched. If I didn't shut the fuck up and disappear, or I'd be next. I ignored it. I'd had a lot of threats up until then. I'd been threatened a lot of time. I'd been jumped a couple of times in public and outside my house. So it was getting to the point where I knew it was, a bit nasty, but I didn't think that'd actually do anything to the roos. Within a month, one was dead. We were not quite sure whether it was poisoning or if it was, an E. coli or something like that. But like I said, within a month, one was dead. And then about 2 weeks ago, somebody came and let the kangaroos out, opened the gate up to let them out. 2 of them got out. I managed to get one back, but one of them got away, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to get her back. So she's now gone. And then something else that I haven't made public yet was on Friday, they came back again. And because I padlocked all the gates so that they couldn't get in and just open them, they actually smashed the whole back fence in. So coming back after my kangaroos again. So unfortunately now kangaroos have now been moved. So I no longer have my kangaroos. And now I am packing up my house and I am moving.
And who has the motivation to perpetrate these kinds of incursions into your sanity and freedom? Who's doing that? Who would even want to do that?
Well, I've been threatened by a few different people, black market producers that don't want it legalised, that they're making too much of a profit at the moment and they're not going to get, they're basically going to lose their jobs once it's legalised. People aren't going to buy their products anymore. They're going to start buying legal products, and so they won't need to be ripped off anymore. And so these people, they see me as a threat. They don't want it legalised and they can see that I'm working towards that, but also because I have exposed a few of those people in the community. So if I see someone in the community that is dangerous, that is ripping people off, that is making bad oil or oil that isn't working, and I feel that they are damaging the community, then I will stand up to those people and I'll name them. And I have done that in the past with a couple of people, and a couple of people are a bit annoyed at me, but that's what happens. And luckily, they pulled their socks up and they improved things a little bit, and I haven't had the complaints that I was getting back then. So that's good, and that's what we want. We want, if even on the black market, we want a level where we know that people have got safe products, and they're not going to get ripped off. They're not going to be, being charged for a product they don't receive. So even black market, we can still keep that level, and that's what I'm trying to do in Australia, is keep that level. Yeah. And there are people that don't want that level, and they don't want me. So like I said, I've been threatened many a time, and that's okay. If they want to threaten me, that's fine. But when they start hurting my animals, that's when I'm not happy about it. So I've basically lost half of my animals, half of my kangaroos in the last 3 months. So yeah, I'm pretty devastated because I can't have kids. They were my babies. They were the closest thing I had to children, because kangaroos, you bottle feed them like a baby. They are with you every moment of the day, like a baby, like a newborn baby, and you bond with them like a newborn baby. So I'm absolutely devastated. Basically, I've lost 4 children. That's what it feels like.
Well, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine that. So. I can't imagine that with the pets. I mean, that is ridiculous. And I'm so sorry you've lost all of this. You've given so much, though, to bring focus to this cause, this awareness, this series of rights. And you've really put your body on the line, as they say. You're in Canada in the playoffs of hockey. You're really throwing your body and blocking pucks. And I thank you for that, but I'm so sorry you're enduring all of this personal discomfort. Unfortunately, people just still don't get it yet. And I wish I didn't have to do this show. You know, I wish we didn't have to talk to people like you, because I wish you weren't even having these issues. They all stem from nonsense. So yeah, you're dealing with these
Exactly.
ensconced criminals who, everybody likes the system the way it is, and so do the politicians, and they're washing each other's hands. That's why they don't want to change it around too much. But
And we
gosh,
all know how much money there is in cannabis. You know, there is just so much money in cannabis. Everyone wants it. I mean, like I said, I get thousands and thousands of messages from people all across Australia that are trying to access this. And when we haven't even got 1,000 people that have been able to get it, that just shows to you, you know, that there is definitely a problem. So, you know, we just have to keep fighting. We can't give up. You know, this is something that it is literally saving lives, and we can't give up. You know, they say nothing worth doing is ever easy. So, you know, sometimes we just have to, you know, like you said, throw the body into it, you know, because somebody's got to do it, you know, and that's the problem here. We don't get a lot of support. We haven't got a lot of people doing something. So, you know, I feel like I can't give up, because if I do, who else is going to do this? Do you know what I mean? So,
well, when I
you know,
reached
so that's
the
why I'm
place,
begging people out there to come and stand up and help us, because we need help.
when I reached the place where I knew this is what I was doing in my singular, you know, with the earlier part of my journey, it's a bit nerve-wracking, because you're against the law, so to speak, and then you have to convince a lot of people in your immediate circle who may not know about it as well, and are also skeptical, and those are the people in your immediate circle, and you have to bring it out to them and sort of concentrically expand into society. So when I was at the very beginning of that point, sort of stretching it out one ring at a time, if you will, I didn't realize until I started to come across people like yourself and Vera Toomey in Ireland, and a lot of other people, and started to do some research. And I encourage everyone to do the research on this, your resource here. Once I started to realize that my desires for the future were in sync with so many other people who are fighting nothing more than for the rights and access to this free stuff to remove pain on the one side. That's our motivation. And then there's the people on the other side that want to make the dollars all the time, and they want to control it so much so that people can't even have the choice to take you up on your offer and your presentation. So, Jenny, thank you so much for coming on. You've been fantastic. When do you go back to court, and how can we help bring some kind of focus to your legal efforts?
Okay, well, my trial starts in February. February the 11th is my official trial date, the start of my trial.
Okay.
I have an appearance next Wednesday, the 12th of September. I'm not sure if I'll be appearing or not. It's a closed court. It's only for just some silly stuff, so I'm not sure if I'll be appearing at that one or not. But I'll let everybody know beforehand. I haven't been very well, so it might be better for me not to be at that one. But so the actual trial starts February the 11th, and that's when all the fireworks start, I suppose. So we'll just see whether or not they decide to drop charges before then. But yeah, I can't see myself giving up. But then, you know, you never know what's going to happen. We don't know what they're going to throw at me next. So you know, we just have to wait and see. And I'm going to do my best to fight this as far as I can. If I can get it to trial and get a not guilty plea, then that is fantastic. But if not, if I go to jail, then I go to jail. You know, like I said, we've got to keep fighting this. We can't just lie down like dogs and take it, because that's exactly what they want. You know, that's making it easy.
You don't sound like you're lying down, and I'm better for knowing you. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jenny. We will see you soon.
Thank you for your time. I always appreciate it. You know, we love the Green Crush crew, and, you know, we really appreciate you spreading the word and everything you're doing to spread the word around. So
thanks so much, Jenny.
Thank you, guys.
Hang in. We'll be in touch.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's Jenny Hallam, everybody. Isn't she amazing? She just lays it all down for us. Wow. I can't believe that shit. Yeah.